Welcome to Cashflow. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up and manage CIS. Firstly, we need to go to the Settings menu on the left-hand side of the screen. Once we get to the Settings menu, if you just scroll down to Configuration Settings, you'll see the option in the middle here for CIS options. Once you've clicked in here, you'll have the option to enable on sales and on purchases. So you will be able to apply a CIS deduction against your sales invoices generated and also your purchase invoices generated. If we click on sales for now, we can choose whether it's dependent on our customer code or dependent on a relevant nominal code. We can put in our default CIS rate, and we can choose whether we want the deduction to be against the net value or the gross value of the invoice. We can also choose if we want that deduction to be shown on the printed invoice. We also have the option whether or not we want to include the reference fields on the customer records, their UTR number, company reg, NI and verification numbers that we can see when we generate the CIS summary report. We can also choose if we want to report to show the net amounts instead of the gross. And also if we want to group the items based on customer, or if we'd rather have the report show us the transactions in date order. We can also decide if we want to include a column to show the value of materials that we can't assign a deduction against. On the left hand side, you'll see once we've turned this on, it automatically creates a nominal code to track your CIS deductions, which will help us generate the report and the final deduction value for any period for HMRC. We can choose any excluded nominal codes in here, so we can see I've already added in materials, which means every time I generate an invoice and I choose materials as a code, it will not apply a CIS deduction against that, which means my reporting and my calculations are going to be accurate and I can't claim any CIS deduction against anything that I shouldn't be able to. Once I've done that, all I need to do is click Save Settings at the bottom of the screen. Once we've done that, if we go into a customer or supplier record, we will now see at the top of the page it's added in an additional option for CIS. You now have a tick box, so you can choose whether or not that you want to be able to apply CIS to sales invoices for this particular customer. The default rate has gone in at 20%, and then we can add in their UTR, company reg, for NI number and verification number and update that record, and it will now give me the ability to apply those deductions. What this will show you now, if I go into create an invoice for this client at the top of the screen, once we go and start choosing our line items for this client, so I'm just going to add a line item for my daily rate, and I'm going to add another line in here, and we're going to choose our materials. I'm just going to type in here materials and a value of £500. Once I'm happy with that invoice, I can then just press save in the top right hand side of the screen. What you'll see now, because we've turned on CIS for this customer, is I have the option to apply a 20% CIS deduction against this sales invoice. So if I click that deduction, we will now see it's created an additional line on this invoice, and it's automatically created my CIS deduction for me. As you can see, it's 20% of my £1,000 daily rate. It has not applied that CIS deduction against my materials because in the settings we told it not to do that. Now if we go to print this invoice off, we will now see it's going to show our CIS deduction on the invoice. If we just scroll down, we can see our less CIS deduction listed within here, and you can choose whether or not you want to show that on the invoice itself within the settings menu. Once we've generated our invoices, and we can do exactly the same for our purchases by just turning on CIS against our supplier records, we now have a CIS summary report. If we click on reports on the left hand side of the screen, in general reports, just scroll down and you will see you have a CIS summary report. Once we open this up, all we need to do is put a start date and an end date, and that's the period we want to show the deductions for, whether or not the report we want to run is on sales or on purchases, and if we want to run it based on payments we've received or on items we've issued. I'm going to click items issued at the moment because we did not receive payment on our invoice. Now if I go and run that report, that's going to show me the invoice we've just created, the customer details and their address. It's going to show me the date of the transaction, the invoice number, which I can drill into to take me straight through to that. If we would have filled out their company reg number, etc., all that information would show on here. It shows the invoice value and the CIS deduction against that. So when we're running our CIS, we will continue to follow that process, and when we come in to run this report, it's going to show us the final value that we need for our CIS deduction, and we can go into HMRC and key that into their website. We can download this into a spreadsheet, and we can also print this off as a PDF and keep it for our records, and all that information is going to be stored within Cashflow. And that's how easy it is to set up, record and manage CIS within Cashflow.